Okay, so today we're going to take a deep dive into something I'm sure a lot of you have heard about. Apple cider vinegar.
Yeah, it's everywhere these days.
It really is.
Yeah.
You see it online all the time and in magazines, and people are always talking about it, especially for, things like weight loss.
Yeah, all sorts of health benefits, right?
Right. Exactly. But we wanted to do something a little bit different for this deep dive. We've been looking at a transcript from Dr. Berg's YouTube channel. And we're going to try to kind of get to the bottom of, what he's saying about why apple cider vinegar might actually work.
Not just what people say, but like what's the mechanism? What's the real reason behind it?
Yeah, what's the science behind it? That's what we're really trying to uncover here.
Exactly.
So one of the first things that kind of jumps out from this material is that a lot of people think that apple cider vinegar is like this nutritional powerhouse.
Yeah.
It's full of vitamins and minerals. But the transcript's pretty clear that that's not really the case.
Yeah. That's one of the first myths it tackles. It's like, no, you're not getting a huge dose of vitamin A or vitamin C or all these minerals from apple cider
Yeah,
vinegar.
it's not like a multivitamin. Right.
Exactly.
So if it's not about the vitamins and minerals, what is it about? Well, the source we're looking at says the key ingredient is acetic acid.
That's the magic component.
Yeah, that's the thing that supposedly is doing all the work.
And he makes a really interesting point about acetic acid.
Hmm.
And it kind of ties into this whole idea of like our bodies and pH.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting because we've all heard so much about, the dangers of being too acidic.
Right, right. Like you got to alkalize, alkalize,
Right.
alkalize, right?
Exactly. But Dr. Berg is kind of flipping the script on that.
He is. He's saying, well, actually, a lot of people are too alkaline.
Yeah. And specifically, he's talking about blood pH.
Blood pH.
Yeah.
Now, he does say, pH is going to vary throughout your body. Like your urine's going to have a different pH than your saliva. But when it comes to like your overall system, blood pH is the one to pay attention to.
Right. But of course, we can't easily test our blood pH at home.
No, not really. So he kind of says, if you want to get a sense of where you're at, Google it.
Right.
Google like symptoms of acidosis, symptoms of alkalosis,
Right,
and
yeah.
just kind of see, which ones resonate with you.
Yeah, see what seems to fit.
And what he says is that based on his experience, a lot of people are actually too alkaline.
That's interesting, right?
It is. It's kind of a different way of thinking about it.
It is. So, okay, let's say for a second that a lot of us are too alkaline.
Yeah.
How does apple cider vinegar, or specifically the acetic acid in apple cider vinegar, how does that actually help?
Well, he lays out a few key ways.
Okay.
One is that, by making your body slightly more acidic, it can actually help with mineral transport.
Okay, so you can absorb minerals better.
Exactly.
Interesting.
He also talks about how it can improve enzyme function. A lot of our enzymes, they work best in a slightly more acidic environment.
Okay.
And then he also mentions it can stimulate the thyroid.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And he also says it can boost metabolism.
Okay.
So he's attributing all of these kind of far-reaching effects to apple cider vinegar, specifically its ability to kind of nudge your pH in the right direction.
Yeah, so that's a lot of stuff. Now, I know one thing a lot of people are curious about with apple cider vinegar is heartburn, like acid reflux, GERD, all of that.
Right, yeah. It seems counterintuitive, right? Like, why would you take an acid for something that's caused by acid?
Right.
But, he actually offers a different perspective on that, too.
Okay, tell me.
He says that actually sometimes heartburn and GERD are caused by having a stomach that's too alkaline.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And he explains it this way. He says when your stomach's too alkaline, it can cause the esophageal valve, the little valve that keeps your stomach contents down.
Right, it keeps everything down where it's supposed to be.
Exactly. It can cause that to malfunction and stay open.
Okay.
So what happens is the acid from your stomach comes up.
Right, and that's what causes the burning and the pain and all that.
Exactly. So he's saying in those cases, apple cider vinegar can actually help because it helps to lower the stomach pH.
Okay, so it kind of brings it back into balance.
Exactly. It helps that valve to close properly.
Interesting.
And he also mentions that, as we get older, our stomach pH naturally tends to become more alkaline.
Okay.
So, if you're over 50 or 60, you might be more prone to this.
That makes sense.
And he says that can also lead to problems with protein digestion and mineral absorption, especially calcium.
Oh, okay. So that's really important to know.
It is.
So speaking of calcium, he makes this really interesting connection between an alkaline pH and calcium and how your body uses calcium, like where it ends up.
Yeah, this is a fascinating point. He explains that when your pH is too alkaline, it can actually hinder your body's ability to absorb calcium properly.
Mm.
So what happens is instead of the calcium going to your bones where it should be,
Right.
it starts to build up in soft tissues.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
Not good, no. And he gives a bunch of examples. He talks about stiffness, arthritis, bursitis, even things like cataracts, kidney stones, gallstones, tartar on your teeth.
Wow. So all sorts of things that you wouldn't necessarily think of.
Right, exactly. And he's saying that all of those could be linked to this underlying issue of an overly alkaline system.
And your body not using calcium properly,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. And he does mention that, vitamins D and K2, they're important for transporting calcium.
Okay.
But if your pH is out of whack, it doesn't matter how much D and K2 you have,
Right.
your body's not going to be able to use that calcium correctly anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. It's a lot to think about.
It is.
So, okay. Another thing that he brings up that I found really interesting is the role of stress in all of this, and specifically cortisol.
Yeah, he kind of connects high stress and high cortisol levels to alkalosis.
Yeah. And that was kind of surprising to me. I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, and he actually cites the SIBA Encyclopedia of Endocrinology to support this.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's saying that when you're stressed, your body can actually lose acid, specifically hydrogen ions, through your urine,
Okay.
and that pushes your system towards a more alkaline state.
So basically the stress is making you more alkaline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is why he actually cautions against alkalizing your water too much.
Okay.
Because if you're already stressed and then you're alkalizing your water on top of that, you're kind of pushing yourself further in that direction.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So then how does the stress and the alkalosis, how does that tie back into the calcium issue? Because I know he talked about like eye twitches specifically.
Yeah, so he says that when you're stressed and your body's more alkaline, it can't absorb calcium as well.
Right.
And so what can happen is you can actually have like a localized calcium deficiency, even if you're getting enough calcium in your diet. And he says that can manifest as a twitch, like a twitch in your left eye.
Oh, wow. Which is, yeah, that's a common thing when you're stressed, right?
Right, exactly. So he's saying that, apple cider vinegar can help with that by, again, bringing the pH back into balance and helping your body use calcium more effectively.
Oh, interesting.
And it's not just eye twitches. He also mentions things like calf cramps, nerve pain, even like that migrating arthritis pain that moves around.
Right.
He's suggesting that all of those could be improved by apple cider vinegar because it's helping with calcium mobilization and pH balance.
Yeah, yeah. So all those kind of weird aches and pains and things that we just kind of live with sometimes.
Right, exactly.
So there's one more thing that I wanted to ask about that I thought was really interesting, and that's potassium.
Yeah.
He talks about potassium retention.
Yeah. So he explains that when your body is in an alkaline state, it tends to lose potassium,
Okay.
which can then make the alkalinity worse.
Oh, wow. So it's like a vicious cycle.
Exactly. So he's saying that apple cider vinegar can help with that because it helps to bring your pH back down.
Okay.
And as your pH normalizes, you stop losing potassium.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about people who are on like higher protein diets? Because I know he mentions that specifically.
Yeah. So he points out that when your body breaks down protein, one of the waste products is guanidine, which is very alkaline.
Okay.
So if you're eating a lot of protein, you're producing more of this alkaline waste product.
Okay.
And that can lead to some of those same symptoms we've been talking about, like the twitching, nerve pain, maybe even some joint discomfort.
Right. Yeah. It all kind of comes back to that pH balance.
It does.
So what he's saying is that apple cider vinegar can help to flush out that alkaline residue.
Exactly. So it's kind of acting like an internal cleanser in that way.
Yeah. That's interesting. Now, even when he talks about the immune system, it seems like he's still really focused on this whole pH balance idea, especially when he brings up vitamin C.
Yeah. He has kind of a unique perspective on vitamin C. He seems to be more of a fan of like a natural vitamin C complex rather than just straight ascorbic acid,
Okay.
which he considers to be synthetic. But regardless, his main point seems to be that it's the acidity of vitamin C that makes it so beneficial for the immune system.
Okay.
So he's saying that, taking apple cider vinegar can provide similar benefits because it's also acidifying.
Okay.
So he specifically recommends it for things like colds, fevers, viral infections.
Okay. So basically, anytime your immune system needs a little boost.
Exactly.
Now, I know he also gives a recipe for like an apple cider vinegar drink.
He does, yeah. It's pretty simple.
Okay, tell me about it.
So it's basically apple cider vinegar, water, And then he says you can optionally add lemon juice, and he specifically mentions Italian Volcano brand,
Oh, yeah.
and then also 100% cranberry juice.
Okay, so he's got very specific recommendations.
He does. He does. And he recommends drinking this, a couple teaspoons of apple cider vinegar mixed with the water and the juice before each meal, so 3 times a day.
Okay.
And he says that this can help to stimulate your thyroid and acidify your stomach, which can aid in weight loss.
Okay, interesting.
He does mention that if you have a really slow metabolism, you might want to skip the cranberry juice.
Okay.
He also says you can add ginger, either the root or like a ginger extract for its tonic properties.
Okay.
And then one last thing he mentions is that if you find yourself craving this drink, it might be a sign that your body really needs it.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, so listen to your body, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Your body knows.
Okay. So to kind of sum it all up, it seems like the main takeaway here is that, according to Dr. Berg, the real benefit of apple cider vinegar isn't about all the vitamins and minerals.
No, it's about the acetic acid and how it affects your body's pH.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about bringing your body back into balance. Exactly. And he says that can then have all these downstream effects on everything from mineral absorption to enzyme function to even your immune system.
Right, right. It's really fascinating, all the things that he connects to this whole pH balance idea.
Yeah, it's definitely a different way of thinking about health and wellness.
Yeah, it is. So, as we wrap up, I think it's important for our listeners to, keep in mind that we're just kind of exploring this one particular source.
Yeah, this is just one perspective.
Exactly. And, everyone's different, everyone's body's different. So what works for one person might not work for another.
Right.
So, always consult with your healthcare provider.
Absolutely.
But, it's definitely worth thinking about all the things that we've discussed today.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to consider, right?
It is. All the symptoms that he mentioned, like the stiffness, the digestive issues, the eye twitches, the fatigue, all of that. Could apple cider vinegar be, a potential solution?
Maybe.
Maybe. Maybe not. It's worth exploring, I guess.
Right.
And, we always encourage our listeners to do their own research.
Yes.
And to, reach out to us if they have any questions or if they've tried apple cider vinegar and they've had, good or bad experiences. We want to hear about it.
Definitely.
So, yeah, keep the conversation going.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us.